Captain Shaw gets his Tasha Yar moment. Data gets a therapy session with Counselor Troy. Worf falls asleep. And Anton Chekhov quotes his dad. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and I am shocked that Terry Matalas and the entire team at Star Trek Picard had the nerve to give us one of the greatest episodes and seasons of Star Trek ever. Today, of course, we're doing a review of Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 10, the series finale, The Last Generation, written and directed by Terry Matalas. We have an extremely special guest today wearing his monster maroon from The Wrath of Khan. It is Walter Koenig. Hey, Walter.
Hi, how you doing? Glad to be here.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, let's just get into this. It's so good to have you, of course. And later on, you'll be hanging out with Captain Shaw himself, watching the episode with him, which is freaking amazing. Can you just walk us through very quickly how you were approached by the good people at Star Trek Picard to do this work as Anton Chekhov?
Well, actually, it's not a terribly exciting story. You know, I've had experiences with Star Trek along the way that were far more important and significant and well worth telling. I was walking my dog. I ran into Todd, and Todd said to me, this was like the second time I'd seen him. And he said, "Oh, by the way, I think our line producer is going to get in touch with you." And I said, "Really? What about?" He says, "Well, they have something in mind for your character." And I was under the impression, for some reason, that it was going to be in the first episode of the new season and not in the last episode. Didn't make any difference to me. But initially, I didn't know that it wasn't even going to be a visual part, that it was just going to be a voiceover. But they did, in fact, call me. Jerry, is that his name? The line producer?
Don't know, but I can check.
Yeah.
Well, in any
go with
case,
Jerry.
Yeah, okay, go with Jerry. They did call me, and it was a voiceover. And they said you could either come in or we can come to your house. So I said, "Come to my house." So they did, 3 or 4 people, cameraman and sound engineer and Jerry, I think. And we did it a couple of different ways. We did it with the Russian accent, and we did it without a Russian accent. And the reason we did it without the Russian accent, as those of you, well, I'm sure everybody will have seen that episode when you guys air your podcast. But the reason why they tried it without the accent was because it wasn't Pavel Chekhov; it was Anton Chekhov, who was, whether it was Pavel's son or grandson, I don't know how the star dates work and where it was
son.
Paul.
It was his son. One of the lines was, to quote my dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thing that Chekhov said?
Yeah, he said something to the effect of, to quote my father, or as my father said, "Hope is never lost. There are always possibilities." And so he was quoting Pavel Chekhov, of course, and you said it in the Russian accent. So it was like Chekhov's son was doing an impression of his dad in the Russian accent. Now, I know this was probably like a year or so ago. So it was a while ago.
I don't want to spread false rumors. And I am 86 years old. I don't remember saying that line. I mean, it's possible. It's possible that they had somebody dub it. because I don't remember. Of course, it's about 3 months ago, but I'll have to see it to make sure that I actually said it.
I love the delivery, by the way. What I heard, well, when you did say hope is never lost, I wrote that down as well in my notes. There are always possibilities. The delivery I thought was excellent because it felt inspirational. I felt like there was hope going forward as I was hearing your voice. So you delivered it on point.
Mhm.
Well, I'll reserve the thank you until
Until you watch it later today.
Yeah.
And you also said the part where you said nuclear vessels in this
Yeah.
episode was so. No,
No, I didn't say it.
No, I didn't. No, but I thought it was fitting though because this really does feel like almost a bookend on Star Trek, the legacy part of Star Trek in some type of way. It feels like a swan song for legacy Star Trek, the original couple of series, your show and obviously Next Generation. And I'm glad that they celebrated and brought in original cast member to kind of give us a nice bookend on the story. But they didn't give you any extra kind of detail on how the significance of this appearance would be.
It was kind of self-evident that I'm
Right.
delivering a warning, and that's why I thought it would show in the beginning of the episode, and I thought the episode would be about how they deal with what I said.
Right.
Evidently, that's not the case. So, but I'm going to, as has already been said, I'm going to be seeing it for the first time tonight with Todd and his wife, and I'll know better how it fits in, I guess.
You're gonna love it. Can you tell us?
I actually want to know about how they do that. Do they come to your house and bring one of those boom mics and set it up, or
Set up
is
some
it?
Well, they didn't
walls
need a
around
boom
you.
mic because it wasn't visual.
Okay.
They had the sound engineer, and they had, of course, the camera person. And I believe the sound engineer was a lady who's going to be present this evening when we watch it at Todd's. I think so.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's fun. It's what's nice is, I mean, I truly do try very hard not to live in the past. With all the personal appearances that we've all made over the years, it's hard to, totally absent that from your present life because you're always running into people who are telling you that they've enjoyed Star Trek. But to be even in this very, very minor way, to be a part of the present in a viable sense, my voice was nice. I'm not going to gain any sleep over it. I'm not going to sleep better because of it. But yeah, it's nice to have been thought of and to be included, even in this, as I say, minimal way. Back in the day when they were shooting the last season of Next Generation, they tried to bring Chekhov into the show, into their one of the episodes. And I met with one of the writers, and we had lunch together, and neither of us could think of anything. There were two caveats. One was we couldn't use time travel, and it was something else that we couldn't do. So it was difficult trying to come up with something that would be fresh. So we didn't. And then I was called in, and I don't remember the progression of events, but I was called in to meet with the writers, and maybe we could kick some ideas around. And there was like 7 writers in the room. And the very curious thing is that I'll never know the answer to, and I'm revealing it here, I think for the first time, is that
Exclusive.
literally 30 seconds after we sat down, the phone rang. Somebody picked it up, blah, 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 looked at the other writers, and they all left. They all left the room, never to come back. Now,
wow.
Weird.
What does it mean? How do you interpret it? I have my suspicions, but I have nothing to justify them with. I mean, I have no foundation to operate from. So I'm not going to repeat it here. But the postscript is, I got an idea. It was too late, but I finally got an idea. I discovered that your Borg, your Swedish Borg, what's his name? First contact.
You mean Alice Krieger, the Borg Queen?
No. Strike that. No Borg. The Klingon. Worf, yes, of course, Worf. Worf evidently had a relationship with Chekhov's grandparents. I learned that after the fact, and I came up with an idea as a consequence of that. And the idea would have involved not Chekhov, but a hallucination. That Worf becomes ill, and he hallucinates Chekhov on the bridge of the Enterprise. And then there would be a story for that episode that would go with it. So that would have worked, that would have circumvented the two prohibitions and made a story possible.
That's really cool. I'm guessing the second thing was probably no holodeck, because they're like, we've done the past, the going in past, time travel, and we've done the holodeck. So maybe those were the two that they couldn't do. But Walter, one of the very special things about your appearance in this episode was the name Anton Chekhov. Yes. That obviously was named after Anton Yelchin, who played Chekhov in the 3 Kelvin movies in 2009, 2013, and 2016. He passed away tragically at the age of 27, much too young, but you knew him. You did get a chance to meet him. Can you speak on what kind of a person he was, just for anybody that didn't get a chance to?
Sure. What I know, and it really is limited to a couple of hours of conversation. I was invited to come to the set while they were shooting one of the films. I don't remember which one it was. And they either called Anton or he had a late call, one of the two. But he came and we sat for 2 hours and we talked. Very bright, very articulate, very not polite isn't the word, but very generous in the conversation. So I responded, I related to him very, very well. And extremely talented. I mean, at his age, he'd already done 60 different appearances on film. And with Sir Anthony Hopkins,
Mm-hmm.
What? Yeah, I mean that in itself is a career.
Far as yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah. So so when the movie came out, we did have an interesting moment. When the movie came out, and we were invited to come see it, the initial screening at the theater in Hollywood. After it was over, there was a party in a parking lot several blocks away, and we drove over there. And all the actors from the film had a coterie of fans, all surrounding them. And I looked over, and there's Anton with a big group, sizable group of people listening to his every word. And he saw past them. He saw me walking by past them, and he yelled out, Walter, I've got my own Chekhov doll. I thought it was great. I mean, here he is being fawned over, and what he chose to speak about was his Chekhov doll.
That's cool. I know that's an exciting moment, though. I remember getting my first little action figure. I was excited about that little toy because I grew up playing with action figures, and I finally had my own. So
it's got to be cool.
A special moment for anybody. Yeah.
Walter, do you have a Chekhov action figure?
Sure.
I have a whole bunch.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
I'm 100% sure.
I have about 40 figures. I think the Hallmark figures, the tiny little ones that go on the Christmas trees, are very well rendered. I think that they are among the best rendered, I think, for all of us, as any other.
Mm-hmm.
Do you and I'm sure you get this, but I just wanted to hear from you. Do you get people that identify specifically with the character's Russian background? Do you get people that come up to you and identify with that aspect of being an immigrant?
Nope. This was the most non-controversial Russian ever be on television.
Right? Yeah.
My mail, of course, was all from young kids, from preteens, on line paper and pencil, and they were more interested in my hair, my woman's wig that I wore for 7 episodes, than they were in anything political, socio-political.
Right.
Which was the intention, which was Gene Roddenberry's intention. He was looking for a character that the young kids would identify with. And I saw the memo to the staff saying, somebody like the young actor they have on the Monkees. So that was their inspiration. Davy Jones was their inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So my mail was, I don't know, 90, I suppose 90% or more, because I read it all for a while until I discovered that there just wasn't enough time during the day to continue that process. Yeah, but it was mostly from kids.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Well, Walter, this has been really cool, and we really appreciate you taking the time away from your busy schedule. Everybody saying, Walter, come watch it at my house. No, Walter, come watch it at my house. Everybody fighting over that. But we really appreciate you jumping in. I know that we all were very, very, very excited to hear your voice and to hear the name Anton Chekhov and to hear you, even if you don't remember it, hearing you quote yourself. But thank you so much for taking this time to join us and for saying yes when Star Trek Picard said, hey, you want to try something?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Walter. And thank you for paving the way for all of us that have now different, paths that we've been able to make in the Star Trek universe because of the foundation that you and your castmates laid down. And I think that's just a tremendous service you did, all of us who have been employed and have had a life and a career based on the foundation that you and your castmates and production and Gene Roddenberry laid down. So we owe you all a debt of gratitude.
I just want to say one more thing, if I may. I don't want to disillusion anybody. I've heard those kind of comments. I've been to I made many personal appearances, and people are always lavish in their approbation, and I am grateful for it. But we've got to remember that what we all are actors, and we did it initially to get paid, to get paid for a performance. We love performing, but that is not an unimportant part of the process. And I don't want folks to think that this was some kind of humanitarian sacrifice on my part being involved in Star Trek, because people view Star Trek with a kind of an aura and a sensibility that would tend to make us be more important than we really are. Ultimately, we're actors. I mean, I never made a terrible horror movie, but if they had offered me one and paid me significantly, I probably would have done it, unless it was really grotesque. But so I just want to make that point. Ultimately, I'm just another guy out there, and
that's very humble of you, Walter. But I still say that if it wasn't for you guys being able to pull it off in a way that the audience related to, you won the fans over. Ultimately, the people respond, and it's the people choose what they elevate, what they like, and you gave them a choice that was sensible to them, and that has carried on to this day, and that's the impact of the work you did. We've all done work as actors, but very few times does it leave this kind of an impact on people, where decades later they still celebrate the work, and that's just a tribute to the level of greatness that all of you collectively put out there. So I think that there should be some credit to you for laying down the foundation and giving us a universe of world building that is still having worlds built up on top of it. And you started that world, and I appreciate my own effect that it's had in my life. So once again, wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the foundation that you guys laid, at least in this particular realm of discussion in sci-fi and Star Trek. So I thank you, Walter. You've been just an amazing ambassador too, as a human being, and just a gracious person. So those are the reasons why we love you. Those are the reasons why 50 years later, everybody still talks about it and wants to see you, because you're just that good of a person, and we appreciate that about you, Walter. So thank you.
Hear, hear.
That's it. I'm good with that.
That's it, everybody. You heard it here first. Walter said, "I don't care about the money. I just want to pave the way for young actors." Mother Teresa over here. Thank you so much, Walter. But everybody, stick around. We're going to be talking all about this awesome episode, and please go tweet Walter out and tell him what an amazing job he did, and echo Cirroc's sentiments about him being a superstar for us for 50 years and making lives better, because he really did, all jokes aside. So stick around, everybody. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc frickin' Lofton.
Hello.
All right. Here come the trivioids of the day. And they go a little something like this. Anton Chekhov quotes his dad. The Borg hit a transwarp conduit inside the gases of Jupiter. Data hates the Borg. Riker had no idea Worf's sword was so heavy. Worf falls asleep. Captain Shaw gets his Tasha Yar moment. Worf is an honorable maverick. Data gets a therapy session. Troy looks up getaways. Data witnessed an ensign feeding his cat the other day. Geordi initiates the Enterprise's shutdown sequence. Riker misses Majel Roddenberry's voice. The Titan is now the USS Enterprise NCC 1701G. Jack speaks 13 alien languages. And of course, Lieutenant J's legacy lives on. If you look in the credits, the end credits, there was a character named J, spelled J-A-E. That must be Lieutenant J's offspring or grandson or grandson. It was Christopher J something. Anyway, those are the trivioids of the day. Really cool, though, that Tracy Coco's character lives on. She had a character named after her.
Okay, Lieutenant J.
So,
yeah.
Man, this episode wrecked me. And there are a lot of people online saying this episode destroyed them. There were terms like ugly cry. There were just, again, Terry Matalas had the nerve to utterly obliterate Star Trek fandom like this. And I'm livid. But what did you think, not having seen 7 full seasons of The Next Generation, but you've seen plenty of it. We've seen almost all the first season. How did this hit you?
It was the bow that I was looking for on this season. It was kind of like, I figured it was going to get all wrapped up into a nice little bow. And we got it. I just, at this point, I'm looking at the chemistry between the characters and the actors, and they've worked together so long. At this point, I feel like they know each other so well, and those are the things that I look for. So yeah, this was the capstone on just really one of the best seasons of Trek that we've seen in since these new iterations have kind of spawned. And I think this season, Terry Matalas really went all out and gave the fans what they wanted.
Yeah, he really did. There were a lot of emotional beats, and for me, I was surprised at how happy I was, and I think this is my biggest takeaway for this episode. I was surprised at how happy I was that they all lived happily ever after. I feel like that was kind of the big theme, and you never know. A lot of times in Star Trek Nemesis, Data dies. In Picard season 1, Picard dies. There's death, there's pain, there's sadness. Spock dies in the Wrath of Khan. There are all these things that happen. At the series finale of Deep Space Nine, might as well have had the Sisko die, because for all we know, he's kind of in that in between. But I was surprised at how happy I was at they lived happily ever after. You know what I mean? It was just it was exactly what I wanted, and I didn't know it. So thank you to them for that.
Yeah, they had me for a moment, though. I mean, there was a moment when I thought that Jack and Picard were both gonna just kind of ride off into the Borg sunset or whatever, in that Matrix place that they were standing in. At some point, I was thinking, oh, are they about to, disconnect from the rest of us and just go ahead and, follow each other, father and son, into the green Matrix? But it didn't turn that way. I thought the shot of the ship kind of floating over them and beaming them out was really cool on a director's point of view from Terry Matalas. I thought that was a pretty awesome shot. It kind of felt like more of a UFO abduction than a usual conventional Star Trek beam up, right?
Yeah,
I kind of got that feel because they were hovering directly over. But yeah, they gave us a lot. I would have liked to seen the Borg Queen a little bit more mobile.
Yeah,
because it seemed like she was like fixed.
She was crazy looking. What the heck? I was like, whoa, the Borg Queen is a monstrosity. Wow. What the heck? But I will say, to your point about the UFO abduction, for me, it was the scene right after that, when you're seeing the Borg cube explode. And as that's happening, my mind immediately says, I know what's going to happen. We're going to see the Enterprise come out. And I even knew the exact track it would take. Yeah, the exact, because that's just kind of what I don't know if that's just like something in film that we were trained. I was waiting for it too. But I knew exactly where it was going to come out and how it was going to loop around. Like, I don't know. We've been trained to know that is the direction that it takes, right? And even still, I was looking for, I was like, okay, here it comes. It's going to do this thing. Even still, when it did it, it really hit me emotionally. Still, even though I literally knew exactly. And it's just, and that's kind of the thing where a lot of times people say you're not going to write anything new. Everything's been done before. Everybody can write something good or have a great idea that's been done. But the key is execution. And they executed that so beautifully, especially with the shield. I didn't imagine, the visualization of the shield protecting them. And that really made it even more beautiful. This tiny ship flying with that little shield around it. Oh, man, I was in love.
Yeah, the little blue shield. But I had some questions too. Like I kept seeing the formation that the Borg / Federation ships were in, and I kept wondering what the hell is that formation? It almost spelled letters, like it looked like Greek letters or something. Like theta or one of them. But I was like, what are these? What is this formation about?
I think I know the letter you're talking about, like a circular letter with a line through it. Yeah,
yes.
I don't know what letter that is, but it's like a circle with a line through it.
Yes, exactly. I think it's theta, but
that's really interesting.
I was wondering, are they trying to spell like a something? Is this like a what? What are these formations about? I couldn't see the geometry and why that would be the attack formation that you would use.
I don't know. So theta, you know what it is? So theta, let me just pull this up real quick. Theta, you are right, is this kind of thing where the line goes through it, but that's more horizontal. Right. It looks like it's phi or phi,
yeah.
But that's the one. This is what it looked like, right? This one right here.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I wonder if that was done deliberately.
I couldn't understand the formation. Like what? I don't understand why you would have a circle and then the line going down it. Aren't some of the ships in the way of the others? Like with that line,
not if they're in unison. If they're all together in unison, and that was what that new, technology was to keep everything together. So no matter what direction they go, or how fast or how slow, they all move together. Theoretically, this is something that is new to Star Trek, and it's got to be so tough to come up with new things in Star Trek, like new technology. Like Star Trek Discovery really has it tough because they're so far into the future that they have to come up with stuff that's like mind-blowing to people that are already used to technology that's 400 years from now. And so this was, I guess, a new invention, and it's tough.
They had another new invention in this episode that I thought was pretty nice. Whoever came up with this idea deserves a pat on the back. And that was the phasers being turned into transporters.
Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah.
Whoever did that was like, oh, that's genius right there. And as a matter of fact, why wouldn't you constantly do that? Once you have that ability, instead of killing a bad guy, for example, you could literally just transport them right to jail. So like,
let's
one
ask
shot, you're in jail.
The people that are watching right now, I feel like I've seen that once before, but I can't picture it. I know for sure it was done in one of the very first episodes of Voyager. The Vidians would do it. They would like shoot somebody, but they would transport specific organs out of people, and that's what happened to Neelix. But I feel like there was something else also done, and maybe I'm thinking of a different franchise, but everybody let us know in the comments below if that has ever been done before, or if the Vidians with the organs is the only time. Because it's certainly new to the Federation, and 7 of 9 did say that. She said, we've successfully invented, the phaser beam me up or whatever it was.
I liked it. That was cool. I didn't know they used it before, but at first time I'd seen it. So
it was only similar. It wasn't like that. Yeah.
The other thing that was kind of new, another little advance, let's say, in what we're used to seeing, was the Klingon bat lift that had a secret compartment where you can pop out the phase little pistol, right?
And Cirroc was like, "What a waste of a secret compartment." Am I right?
I mean, it's only 420.
It's 420. You're right. Actually, my brother actually texted me a picture of him. He said, "Happy 420 from the nation's capital." He's in DC. I'm like, "What are you doing at DC on 420?" I don't know. I need to follow up. I'm like, what's going on over there?
I don't know.
But anyway,
but yeah, there were just so many good moments, and I mean, good thing the Borg decided to hide in the gases of Jupiter as opposed to Uranus.
I wonder. I think you're onto something. I think the writers' room must have made that joke at some point where they're like, "Are we sure we don't want to hide it in Uranus?" I'll bet you you're right that joke was made more than once in the writers' room of Star Trek Picard. And if anybody in that writers' room, Terry or anybody, Sean Shredda, are listening or watching, fess up. Let us know in the comments. You don't have to say
I couldn't help it. I had to go there. It was too easy for me. I was like, "Oh, the gases, huh?" Worf also had one of the great lines in this episode. "I will make it a threesome."
Yeah, and the Riker goes, "Do you even hear yourself?" Well, Worf had some of the best moments when he first. When at the end, when Geordi and Data, they exchanged little pats on the shoulder, so fucking cute. And then Worf goes and he sits down next to Geordi, and he like crashes down. Like he holds Geordi's hand, and Geordi helps him down, and he just collapses into it like an old man. Oh my god! And then he falls asleep. And I'm like, if this show gets any freaking sweeter, I'm going to get a cavity. Because this thing, I've never seen an episode that was cuter than this. And I even thought, like, they just beat the bad guys and there's 20 minutes left or 25 minutes left. What are we missing? Is there another big bad? Is there another reveal? And all it was 20 minutes of all the stuff that we've always wanted but didn't realize we wanted. I was more than happy to spend 20 minutes about happily ever after stuff. Worf being cute, Data and Geordi having their moments, Poker mentioning Guinan. I mean, I am here for. I could have watched that for 2 hours. I could have had a 2-hour finale of just happy moments between those old gray people. Loved it.
Yeah, we saw Crusher get promoted to like admiral or something, right?
Yeah, right. And head of Starfleet Medical.
Yeah, that was cool. I really liked Data when he was like, my gut. Like, I trust. It's my gut. Trust me. That whole scene between him and Geordi, I thought was really fun. Tuvok, Tim Russ, he made another cameo and came back for a second appearance in this show, and I loved him in this one because we actually saw the real Tuvok, and when he says "request denied" or whatever, I enjoyed his delivery. I thought that scene with him in 7 and 9 was excellent.
Amazing to see him back.
Yeah. Yeah, they just gave us a lot of everything. They gave us what we wanted, and they wrapped it all up in an hour. It was pretty amazing. I thought the same thing. Wow, there's 20 minutes left, but the 20 minutes was, for kind of where are they now or where are they headed, in the near future type of exposition so that we can see, the real kind of wrapping up of things. I loved how Riker said, when he says, you only have a minute, Riker, and he's like, well, he's given me this, he's given me all of that. The least I can do is give him a minute. I thought that was just like a really cool,
beautiful,
tie up for all their adventures together. The moment when 7 of 9 takes over the ship and tells the crew, that one guy's like, look, I was just working at a deli.
I poor bastard.
That dude's like, I don't know any. I just, I don't even know. And she was like, look, we're fighting for all of our families and everything that we know, and there's really no choices here. And I thought when she said, "We're all that's left of Starfleet," I was like, "Oh, that was a really kind of big moment for me too, as well." It kind of restated the impact and the gravity of the moment that we were watching. And then just the cool moments, a lot of ship porn, watching the ship, the 1701G, another moment where it's just like, just a little bit of ship porn in there. They threw that in there. But yeah, I was, there was just too many good things. Beverly, turns out she should be firing all the photons. She missed her calling.
A lot. She said a lot has happened in the last 20 years, and they're all like, tee-hee. I liked and what I expected and what I was very happy that we received was that everybody got their moments, right? Worf got his funny moments, Riker, even Deanna Troi, who wasn't getting a ton of lines on the bridge, even she gets her big moment of, wait, I know where they are. Because Riker says, Imzadi, I love you. Oh God, that was such a beautiful line. He says, I love you, Imzadi. We'll be waiting, me and our boy. Great stuff. I mean, there were just so many beautiful moments, and all of those beats hit right. Tuvok and 7 of 9, that hit right. Every moment, every sweet moment between Riker and Troi, or Geordi and Data, or Worf and Riker, every one of those moments really stuck the landing. Worf was he said whoever leaked this information is an honorable maverick. There's just too many. There were too many moments in this. Also, our good buddy Don Crandall messaged us to let us know about Data's limerick. If you'll recall, when he said there was a young lady from Venus, he started that one in like the second episode of The Next Generation, The Naked Now, when they were all drunk. So that's why he said something like, I should like to finish the limerick one of these days, because like he tried it in the second season. 35 years later, he tries it again. They won't let him. Let the poor man say a freaking limerick, you guys. Also the picture.
Maybe Carrie will finish the limerick for us.
I was thinking that, the picture that Jack had in his new quarters of Picard and Crusher is actually a real picture of Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden at some kind of event or something, and so they use that as like a moment. So that was really cool. And then Q shows up at the end. By the way, I mean, there's just everything. There's too much to cover.
That was a really crazy ending, dude. Just Q popping up. I was like, that's unusual. Basically giving me a ... to be continued at the end of this episode.
Basically, they're saying, hey, you want more, and now we're going to kind of force you to want more by giving you a little teaser. So not only do we see a new crew, a new captain, and her new first officer, Jack Crusher goes into the Nog and Wesley Crusher accelerated ensign program, right? But now also Jack Crusher is now the new favorite toy of Q. He's moved on from Picard and he goes over to Jack. So suddenly we've got the makings of a new series, just like that.
Yeah, and we have Rafi back as the number one on the and you can see the combination of them work really well. I love the way Rafi works with 7 of 9. They have good chemistry together. I love the scene with Data doing the therapy with Troi, when Troi is like, hey, you went over an hour again.
And she was looking at Kafar. This was another thing Don Crandall pointed out. Kafar, they mentioned that in one of the episodes. Let me see. He's got it specifically. But they did mention Kafar before in a previous episode. Where is it? I don't know. Anyway, so it was mentioned before, and that's the one that she ended up clicking on. So that's a very interesting little throwback there.
The crazy thing is she was actually on Priceline because I saw Shatner's little band stream on the bottom.
It was in season 3, episode 2, The Next Generation and Disengage, when they mentioned Kafar and Kafar Prime. Yeah, sponsored by William Shatner and Priceline. That's hilarious.
That would have been a nice little pull in there. But no, they just kept they just kept it going. It was a very good episode. You know, I'm glad they also came back, and I was going to, at some point, I was like, so what's up with the changelings? You know, halfway through this episode, I was like, well, yeah, like what's up with the changelings? Like they can't just give us the changelings infiltrating Starfleet and then not follow that storyline up. And they did. They actually gave us a moment where they showed that they had, Crusher had addressed the changeling issue. So I thought that was another well-placed tie-up for the audience, because it was going through my head, and I'm sure Metalis was like, hey, we got to tie this up, so let's put something here. So they did a good job of doing that, and kudos to them for wrapping that up too as well.
So we're going to jump over to our free-for-all in just a second, but here's a trivia question for everybody listening. This was also just sent in by Mr. Don Crandall. The question is, Walter Koenig is now the third person to both play a character and the offspring of that character. He's the third one.
Who are the two other?
Yeah, who are the other two? We're going to ask that of the people in the free-for-all as well. And on our way out, we'd like to give a very special thanks to Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arukin, Titus Muller, Darlena Marie, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mr. Mike Goo, the enigma known as DQ, Neil Akasaka, Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, my live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Jed Thompson, Steve Case, aka Joe Bugbuster, Sycamon the 8472s, and also, of course, never forget Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Okun. All right, everybody, stick around. We're going to hit that free-for-all. We're going to give you the answer to the trivia question, and we'll be right back on the 7th rule. Oh, hi there, everybody. Didn't know you were there. This is the free-for-all. Of course, Cirroc Lofton is here. We are joined by some of our very good friends. Goldu Scott Jensen, look out. We've got the Matt Boardman, who worked on Top Gun Maverick, by the way, and Discovery in the Orville. We have Eve England out in Wales wearing her Tuvok Rocks shirt, because Tuvok rocks. Malissa Longo is here wearing a 10 Forward shirt. Pretty rad. And we have Steve Case. Everybody's like, is that Joe Bugbuster? Yup.
That's me. I'm actually wearing an F-22 shirt.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh, that's Top Gun-ish.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have an F-14 shirt, which would have really been a Top Gun.
That would have been it.
We've got, I'm trying to remember, there was a mountain lion that died. Wasn't it called P-22?
P-22, yeah.
Okay. Anyway. Okay. Because the F-22.
That's only because P-23 was taken. Sorry,
Cirroc, you're usually so much better at jokes.
I know.
You're getting Ryanitis, where you're just saying, just see what sticks.
I blurp it out now. There's
That's
no
the way to go.
I got to run it by.
It's the most fun.
Yeah, it gives us life. So here's the trivia question sent in by Mr. Don Crandall. That's D-O-N, not D-A-W-N. There is a Don Crandall, D-A-W-N. That's why we have to say that legally. The question is that, look, Walter Koenig is now theoretically the third person to have played a character and that character's offspring.
Mm.
Who are the other two actors to have done this?
Well, Denise would be one of them.
Data.
Nailed
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Denise Crosby. And what'd you say, Melissa?
Oh, well, and Brent Spiner.
Yep. There it is. Very good. So now, everybody, the question is this. Are there more than three? Maybe, like, could you consider Trip Tucker? Because they made a clone from him that he... I don't know. There's got to be another one in there. Anyway.
Well, they sort of did that with Picard, because he's in his second body now.
Oh, yeah. That too.
That's it.
He's a golem now. Oh, and we had a non-appearance mention. Guinan, of course. That was cool. It would have been nice if she was in that last scene. That last scene.
I was looking for her.
So good.
It was
especially
super long.
They made it look like she was in the room. They were like, "Man, Guinan is just giving us a hard time," and I'm like, "Well, where is she?" She went to the restroom. She'll be back after this scene.
And I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No,
doesn't Martok count as a Nam too?
Yeah. Yes. House of Martok. You're right. Very good.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah.
But that last scene that last shot when they were just watching them play poker. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
I could have watched that for 30 minutes. I literally would not have been bored watching that for 30 minutes. Eve England is like, "You're crazy." I can tell. She's like, I was bored in 15 seconds. But anyway, I thought I could have just.
It was very hard.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
30
and with
minutes.
the music.
I did like the table. It was very cool.
Just them
because it was
laughing
lit
and
from the
enjoying each other's
bottom.
company.
Yeah.
The backlight on the table was nice.
What about Three's Company?
I would have
Regal
liked if while they were at that table that they were sharing stories. I thought they could have easily said, "You remember that time you slept with Tasha Yar?" Like
Everybody
like
remembers
that would have been the moment to say those kinds of little lines and drop those things. You know?
You know what I was picturing? I was picturing that, I was just picturing like what's going on actually while they're filming. Director's like, okay, action. And the director's going like, okay, now, Terry Matalas. Now, okay, now you're talking, you're having fun. Now pass a few cards, because they probably just did the rest in like ADR or the looping. And, they're going like this. And I was picturing Brent Spiner going like, okay, how many more cards do I need to deal out? What are we still doing? Yeah, keep going. Laugh. Okay, now, Deanna, you're laughing at something. Oh, and this is going on. And you just know that one or two of them is being a wind-up merchant and like, creating some, just saying whatever. And I think it was Brent Spiner. That's what I was picturing. Well, anyway, Melissa,
I was wondering whether they were really playing. Yeah, I was thinking that it was a long scene to be pretending to play something. I thought they must have been playing, or I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it had to be without sound, is my guess. Melissa, what do you think of this episode? Did you like it? Were you bored? What's the story?
No, I was so moved by this episode, particularly for scenes like this one. That was my favorite scene in the entire series, because the music coupled with the imagery was just beautiful, and it took me back to the Next Generation, and there was just such richness in that moment. And even when Worf is like, "I fold,"
he's like, "I fold." Okay.
Okay. Geordi's response was priceless. And so that's my favorite moment of the entire series. My favorite moment, probably on television ever, is Snoring Worf.
Yes.
Brilliant. Just so beautiful. And Worf's line, "Threesome." I'll make it a threesome.
I will make it a threesome.
And Riker says, "Do you even hear yourself?" It was just wonderful. wonderful. And I love the banter between the TNG crew. There's just this connection between all of them that is so believable and so beautiful and rich, and I love it. And the moment between Picard and Jack when they're in the Borg, whatever, ether, I really loved that too. It was very moving for me. But I like that they set up the ending for possible spin-offs for the now Enterprise, which was great. That was a great moment too, when they revealed the Enterprise G, so there, and the visuals and the music, yeah, all around great finale. I did have a few nitpicks, well, maybe just one really, but overall it was really good.
Oh, I thought you were going to say
what was your nitpick? Yeah.
That they never followed up on Laris. That they just discarded her after episode 1, and I really like that character, so I would like to have known what happened with her, and not just have her be swept under the rug. That was my biggest qualm.
I literally again just pictured Worf sleeping. That is never not going to be funny. It's the cutest freaking thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, and when he said swords are fun, when he had a phaser all along.
And he just plops into his chair. Well, the second cutest thing I've ever seen in my life, you know him, you hate him, Goldie Scott Jensen.
I was hoping that was how you were introducing me, Brian. I was really
the biggest Devils fan ever.
That's it. Even after that last game. This episode was way better than the last Devils game. Very, very much way better. I love that everybody had an important part to play. I was trying to ignore the whole boomers versus millennials subplot that was going on here. Everybody that was young being taken over by the Borg. But I like that just from a standpoint of the kid that loved the show when he was young, that I didn't see a bunch of my favorite characters get wiped out, because they were hinting that they might not make it through. Got all the way to the end. I loved everything that Worf had to say, but particularly there are 2 turns of phrases that a Klingon never admits to knowing: defeat and farewell. I feel like at that moment, the Worf that we have been watching, this character, we've got to watch him more than most other characters on Star Trek. I feel like this is finally where Worf needs to be. He's finally gotten to the point where he's at peace with himself, and there's nothing he's fighting anymore. There's nothing he's trying to come to grips with anymore. And I absolutely loved him. And I loved when he and Raffi had that moment in her quarters, because that
almost felt like they could be together. Yeah.
Like it felt like it was a long, happy hug. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and for the fact that he actually finally hugged somebody, and it wasn't like one of those weird, hover hugs on the side or anything like that. But, I love that. And he says, continue to be a warrior of peace. And I absolutely love that line too, because I feel like Worf has come such full circle from how angry he was when way back in the beginning of TNG and all through DS9 and where he's at now. But yeah, definitely loved a lot of it. I did have a little bit of a weird spot with Raffi's resolution, though. How suddenly her ex-husband and son are like, "Oh, you saved the galaxy. Sure, we don't care, all the stuff that you did. It's cool. Come meet your granddaughter all of a sudden." So I would love to see a spin-off for obvious reasons, but also spin-offs to explore stuff like that. What's it going to be like when your commanding officer is your ex-girlfriend? What's it going to be like when, you're on this Enterprise with these, what did they say? The thief, the pirate, and the spy?
Yes, love that.
Makes the Enterprise G. G stands for gangster, because
gangster.
The OG.
Nice.
Enterprise gangster right there. So God, please give it to me. And then that post-credit scene,
so good.
Unbelievable. So I loved it, and wish I could have more. Maybe they could surprise us with a season 4 or a spinoff. Either way, I'm cool.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Is there going to be a season 4, or you think it's more likely there's a spinoff? I think so.
Spin-off.
I'm voting for spin-offs. I mean, I'd love to see another season, but I think it's going to be at least one spin-off.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Hoping. Well, Matt Boardman is here. He knows more than he's saying right now, but what'd you think of this episode?
It hit all the right notes for me. I mean, I tweeted this. This is how you stick the landing. You know, it's always funny to me that you watch a series and it's like this great fun adventure, and then they get to the last episode and it's like writers don't know how to end a series, you know. And to me, I absolutely love All Good Things, because for me, I love it's like we're just closing the window on this, where, you know, the series is us peeking in on the lives of these characters, and then when it ends, we're just kind of closing the window, and I like to know that they go on and they're doing their thing, right? And All Good Things did that for me. This did that for me as well. But I love, you know, the overall season was about family, and that last scene of seeing them sitting around the poker table, it brought back some memories of the DS9 finale, when everybody's at you know, in the holodeck there in the hall suite saying their farewells and everything before we head off into the not so fun stuff. But I love that overall sense of family. I love seeing the Picard arc, where, you know, as we're reviewing season 1, where, you know, see the first episode, he's telling Riker, hey, you know, can you help me out around kids, because I don't want to make an ass out of myself. And now he has a son, and he's saying, this is what, I'm gonna get teared up. This is what I've been missing from my life, and didn't realize that is that void in my heart that I have been searching for my whole life. And now I find that, you know. And as I never used to be this way. Let me tell you, I never used to be this way. And then I had kids of my own, and it's just like, why am I leaking? But more so, you know, recently, as I see my son's going to be 18 this year, and I'm not. Trust me, I'm not old enough to have an 18-year-old son. But I love that family connection. I love that the Next Generation cast has been friends during the time that they were on the Next Generation, that they maintained that those relationships off, and then now they had this chance again, and it's like you see it again. And that, to me, that's, I don't know, that's what I think helped make this season so magical, and this episode as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Eve England is out in Wales, staying up super late for us. There's no way she's going to miss this. How did you feel about this amazing episode that you loved very much?
I think it's interesting for someone who's not seen all of TNG, because it definitely didn't hit those emotional notes that I think everyone else here and probably watching, and I know on social media, are getting, because I don't connect enough with those characters yet, because I'm only in, you know, season 1, and I think, you know, I think they relied on, and I totally get this was entirely the purpose of season 3, so you can't really criticize it for that, because that's what it was trying to do, and I think it did that really well from everyone's reactions to it. Because I don't think it set up the characters in such a way that I really felt that strongly for them by the end. Whereas I think if you've had 7 seasons and all the movies and all of that stuff, then, you know, it would hit totally different. So I think I'll need to park it and watch it again after TNG, because I think you really do need to see it in that context. But apart, you know, putting that aside, I really like the way that they presented the Borg this time. And I obviously haven't seen much of the Borg, but I loved how they portrayed them as they had become more than just this alien species, or, you know, system that just assimilated. They weren't really evil necessarily. That was just what they did, to becoming these really vengeful, we want to, you know, annihilate. It wasn't, you know, they would, and how it was, and how in their visual, you know, they were skeletal, they were like rotting flesh, like zombies, how that kind of symbolized how they had just evolved into this real villain, I think, and really loathed character as a whole. So I would have liked to have seen a bit more of that, I think, and brought that in a bit earlier, maybe, because I felt that was really cool how they did that, and how, you know, it almost had like sort of, you know, the rise to power of the Third Reich kind of thing, where you have a victory from one group of people, then that kind of leads others to do horrible things, you know, and you had them, you know, pairing up with the Dominion, etc. So I thought that was really interesting. And I kind of, what I would have liked to have seen, and maybe they could do this in some other spin-off in some other way, is when we had Shaw talking about his experiences with Picard on Wolf 359. I mean, I just thought at the end it was slightly too positive on the side of, you know, Jack and all of those people, because I thought surely it's going to be super traumatic for some of those crew members to have somebody who's literally just tried to annihilate the whole human race and the whole Federation, and for him to just be there. I just thought, actually, you're going to have some consequences to that, in the same way that presumably Picard had that impact on people who were involved, you know, when he was Locutus in the first place. So I thought that was something that would be a really interesting thing for them to explore, maybe in a short or something else, because I thought they kind of set that up with the Shaw character, and then they didn't really address that in the lot. But I can see why, because again, it was supposed to be, you know, a bit more positive. But I thought that was really cool. I loved the fact that they used the Battlestar Galactica kind of old tech trope. That's really cool. And I did love all the fabrics that they had in their rooms with those chairs. I was like, wow, I want those chairs. The design of the ship and those rooms was just beautiful.
Yeah, Cirroc and I couldn't stop talking about the fabrics all season long. That is just, we had to edit a lot of that out. However, thanks, Eve. Great stuff. That's really interesting. Cirroc and Eve are the only two people, you know, on these free-for-alls and on the show that haven't seen all of The Next Generation, as far as I know, or at least a good chunk of it. They're both in finishing up the first season, so that you two have a very different view of this than the rest of us. The rest of us, just seeing Riker again makes us like want to cry. Well, you guys were like, oh yeah, I just saw him in episode 19. It wasn't very good, of Next Generation or whatever. Riker was flirting with some lady who he had no business flirting with or whatever. Anyway, moving on to a man that pronounces skeletal as skeletal, because that's the way it's supposed to be pronounced. Steve Case.
So your face.
Not sure where that reference comes from.
What'd you think of this episode?
Okay. Oh gosh. Well, I have seen all of the Next Generation episodes. What I hadn't seen was the J.J. Abrams movies, which I had intentionally avoided because they didn't really seem to be set up for folks who knew and liked Trek. But I did recently go back and watch them, and it kind of confirmed why I hadn't wanted to see them in the first place. A complete regard for fun and no regard at all for canon or for physics, for that matter. But it was fun. And this finale still stayed true to canon, but it was also a lot of fun too. So there was some heavy suspension of disbelief going on, like, this makes no sense, or they would not have really done that. But who the heck cares? This is the finale. And I was sitting in an IMAX theater watching this whole thing like a movie. So I was delighted by that whole experience. And so I loved it all. Some things I picked on, like, as the Borg-controlled fleet is moving in on space dock in this weird configuration, and I thought, what does that mean? Is it because these Borgs are brilliant and that's the most effective possible configuration to lay out the ships? No. Maybe I'm seeing kind of letter Q here. Could that mean something? I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. There were a lot of great scenes, though, a lot of great lines. The bit about the Borgified Q, the Borgified crew, sorry, beamed off the Titan's bridge. That was gorgeous. Apparently we are the cavalry. That was a great line. And one that I especially liked, that was probably an Easter egg, Yeah, that's it. This doesn't seem to make any sense at all as far as a firing configuration. But yeah, one of the lines from someone who wasn't really normally on the bridge, he said, "I'm just a cook." Mm-hmm. And I remembered that line actually from movie Under Siege. You might remember that with Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
Where it was the cook. And he, of course, did amazing things to defend his ship. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like Neelix, when he was always saving the day, he's like, "I'm just a cook."
Yeah. Worf had so many great lines. There was so much uncharacteristic comedy in all this. And again, it didn't matter. This was just for fun. And then the teasers at the end, of course. We're already talking about Q now, I guess. Everyone who is watching this hopefully has already seen the episode. And it's obvious that Q is going to be involved in whatever comes next. And it's obviously that Seven is going to be involved in whatever comes next. And Jack is going to be part of that. I did keep wondering through the season, actually, if we might eventually see Denise, because she was basically the only one who didn't come back. We did get that little cameo of her, that little statuette that Data had while he was being consumed. And we even had Magil as the D's voice, which was a nice touch. So it was a great reunion pick, and I thought it was a lot of fun.
It's great hearing Magil. And then Riker says, "I missed that voice." Remember when he's walking away? Oh,
yes, love that.
Beautiful. And then it always makes you wonder, like, if that was written in the script or if Jonathan Frakes was just like, I missed that voice or something like that. No, he wouldn't have heard it while they were shooting. So scratch that, actually. Cirroc, any final thoughts on this episode, this season, this series? And that formation of ships that you and Steve agree on?
I did talk about that formation too, Steve. I thought that's the same thing. I'm like, this is not a tactical formation, and I don't see what advantage you get by forming in this way. You could surround the base. You could take different angles, but they're all seem in this weird geometric kind of looking like alphabets to me. I thought the same thing. But I was looking at this season. This season, by the way, has been fantastic. Really fun to watch. The pace, the stories, the scripts, everything has been really done well, and as well as the actors coming in and bringing us the reunion. I love all of that. But one thing I will say is that, from my perspective of only having seen, halfway through the first season, and now jumping to essentially the bookend of this Picard journey and the Enterprise journey, I'm looking at Picard early on being a really grumpy, kind of disgruntled, sometimes short-tempered person who's very bad around kids. And that's how he starts off in the first season. He's just not good with kids, and he's short with people, sometimes almost like, rude to some degree. And the older Picard is not those things. I see his temperament has changed. He doesn't have the same kind of short fuse. He doesn't snap at people the same way. And he's more kind of emotionally connected to things. I feel like he has feelings actually at this point, where I didn't see his feelings early on. It was so practical, a matter of fact. We have to do this, and number one, but now it's more. He was looking at Jack in a way like, man, like that's my son, and there was an emotional thing where you could see him processing it. And I don't know if that was done with the intention of fixing the flaw of Picard's character, which is that he's bad with kids, right? And he wasn't really a family person per se. So in some way, I feel like they were trying to address those Picard flaws in this third season to round out our vision of him, so that we see him also as a good parent and an emotional person who's still willing to sacrifice himself for the benefit of the ship and for the others, but in this way it's more emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did a good job of trying to repair those things that I've seen that I dislike about Picard now in the first season. And I think that the maturity has definitely shown better decision making, in my opinion, and also better ability to communicate with his or relate to his crew. But in closing, I'll say one of my favorite moments is the moment when Riker, Picard, and Geordi are standing on the bridge for the last time, and they ordered, the power to be shut down, and they're walking off stage, with the lights down, and that was kind of like, it was like Sam Malone closing down the bar at Cheers for the last time, and you just, it's just like you see that happen. You know that it's going to have its story one day. It'll be open for business again one day, but the whole closing of the lights and turning it off and shutting it down, that gave me a sense of closure as well. Just like, okay, I can put this journey to bed because they're putting it to bed, and when they want to ring it back up again, I'll be there right along with them. But right now they're telling me to put it to bed and lay it down. And I felt that kind of a closure in that scene when they're all walking away with the lights off. And I appreciated that moment. I think that it's like a bow. It's like a performer having that moment. And to me, that was the ship's bow. Because the ship is also a part of the story just as much as the characters, right? The actual ship itself.
We saw that when we're watching this, the last episode. We realized how attached we were to that ship. Because
the voice.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really realize that or care too much about ships like a lot of people do. But yes, Cirroc, it definitely made it clear to us how attached we were to that ship.
So it was a goodbye, farewell to the ship as well, to the D, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we're on to the
G.
To the G, which is a fun moment too. It's like, here's a new journey, new adventure, new crew, and I really like Rafi and Seven of Nine's chemistry together. I think they make a good team. And I also like the idea of a woman as the captain and a woman as the number one, which we haven't seen, I don't think, yet. And that's also a great kind of leaving us something to look forward to in the future, like a ray of hope that, we're even seeing more people move up in positions of power. We're seeing more people gain their own power and their own authority. So I really like seeing that upward mobility at the end of this episode too.
Yeah, good points. We saw a female captain and female first officer, I think a total of one episode. I think that's what right? in the first episode of Discovery. Oh, no, I was thinking of Discovery. Initially, Giorgio and Michael Burnham. What was it in Voyager?
Where B'Elanna and Janeway were on the shuttle together, and it was their bonding moment. I don't know. I think it was like the second episode or something. But that would be the only other time. But you're right, Discovery is the...
Yeah. But this could set up an entire series of that, and I think everybody wants to see it and is excited. And the way Eve England's eyebrows went up 14 centimeters tells us that she agrees. All right. Well, that's about it. I was personally very happy that it was a happy ending. And I was just... I like the idea of everybody surviving. And I like the idea that they're all living happily ever after. and everybody's still out there. And I didn't realize that's what I wanted. I'm like, kill people. Let's see deaths at the end of the movies, at the end of let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get crazy. But this time I was so happy that they all lived on. I was like, wow, this is so good. Oh man. I was very, very, maybe I'm just an old person now. Maybe I'm like, get off my lawn, but
no,
I loved it.
There was so a moment I was like, I'm so glad they didn't go Game of Thrones with this. I'm so glad that they didn't jump on that bandwagon where they just kill everyone.
Yeah.
Not that
I was rooting for a little Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you were. You were playing Death Bingo.
I'm sorry. I thought Jack and Picard were going to like sacrifice themselves at some point. There was a moment when I thought, Picard's going to just step into the Borgs, with Jack, and they're both going to just destroy themselves with the ship. I for a second, I actually thought that's where they were going. To like this martyrdom kind of thing for Picard, but they decided not to. They did the whole, hero beam up rescue thing, but they had me going for a second. I was like, I'm not sure. I don't know if they're gonna make it. We'll see.
Well, our buddy, they didn't. They didn't because Next Generation. I mean, that's always we associate that series with that hopeful vision of the future. I mean, I like to think of the Next Gen era, that's kind of the golden era of the Federation, because then by the time we get to Deep Space Nine, we get a little bit of that, but then we head to the Dominion War, and that's there's that whole fallout post-war of the Dominion War, which was not a pretty thing. Now, obviously that's going to change people, so I think to me it was so appropriate that we ended out with everybody alive and on that very, warm, happy note that they did.
I just also throw in that I hope that they don't go down the route where they just assume all changelings are bad. I
fuck the changelings.
No, no, because
Ryan's a changeling.
It's
what a weird flex.
When that scene where they were scanning people and then they captured the changeling, and I'm just like, really? So you're profiling this species because of a small group of people who are, you mean
when they captured the changelings that had infiltrated and were spying on the Federation?
No, just at the end where the Borg thing had been eradicated and people were, and Dr. Crusher had done something to their transporters to weed out that, and then they started scanning people physically, and that one guy was a changeling, and they captured him, and it made it look like he was under arrest.
That had infiltrated the Federation.
Well,
and was spying on them.
But it kind of felt like racial profiling to me rather than, I don't know. It just seems not a good look to say, well, all changelings must be bad.
Yeah, I think and that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because they didn't make it clear that only that they were all going to be the bad ones, and whether there are other changelings. I guess.
Right.
From previously, if we know the Federation has done bad things, so you never know.
Odo was a good changeling.
Exactly, and he's in the Great Link.
So is Loss.
Who is, it's not wise to assume that every changeling is part of the Renegade Resistance cell.
Yeah.
We should see more of this. That'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Well, I guess that's about it for us.
I was thinking the Federation, if they should study the changeling so that they can figure out how to use that changing technology that they have, whatever that is, to be able to use that towards their ships. So that would be cool to see if an Enterprise turned into a Klingon bird of prey using changeling technology.
Yeah, Star Trek Transformers.
Yeah. Basically.
And everybody in the comments below, let us know your theories and ideas. Do we want changeling biotech so that we can be a bird, an Alvanian falcon? And what do you think? If you found changelings infiltrating the Federation, doesn't mean they're bad, right? Maybe they're just on vacation.
Oh, you'd never know. I mean,
right.
I'm just saying that there's two different groups of changelings, and it's, I don't know. And they didn't kill any of their prisoners. They said they didn't kill any of their prisoners.
And let us know if there are any other parent and offspring combinations that we missed, and your final thoughts on what I think is a very, 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 very good episode and series and season. I was very happy with it. I think a lot of other people are. Tell us your thoughts. Thanks to Goldu Scott Jensen, Matt Boardman, Eve England for staying up, Malissa Longo for keeping us on our toes, and Joe for being the bug buster. I mean, Steve for being Joe Bug Buster. It's very confusing. For myself and Cirroc Lofton and Aaron Eisenberg, everybody have a terrific day. Thank you very much for joining us. And always remember the 7th rule.